Up next is Tottenham. I've also kind of harped on some of these themes with Spurs in terms of you're just asking for trouble by continually not showing up in the first half, especially with a team that has mistakes in them, whether it's the center backs, whether it's Hugo Lloris. They do need to get healthy. The Rodrigo Bentancur injury, the injuries to the front line at times is certainly part of the story here. None of it is an excuse based on the talent this team has. I fall in love with this squad year after year after year after what they do in the summer transfer window. And I've gotten to the point where I feel like I've learned my lesson and I am going to be skeptical until Spurs prove they can actually get the most out of this group of players, whatever group of players that is. And now you're getting to a very interesting conversation, both with Antonio Conte and with Harry Kane. Because if this is going all in, and if you're Daniel Levy, you certainly have to believe it is with the amount of money you spent. It is not like Antonio Conte has no money to work with, that he's not getting the backing he needs. Look at the amount of investment that's been made and the amount of new players who have come in. Charlison, Bentancur, Kulusevski. I know those two were kind of strange in at the beginning of Conte, but both have been sensational for Spurs. Perisic, you go down the list. You can't continue to spend all of that money and continue to back Antonio Conte that way if what it's getting you is another disappointing season where you're in a perfect world finding a way to qualify for the Champions League. And by the way, when you did get in the Champions League last season, you nearly exited in the group stage in a group you should have handled and finished first comfortably. Now, they got to the round of 16. That's all that matters. Maybe they go on a run. And I was the first person to go to bat for Antonio Conte. I whiffed on this one too. I thought Manchester United should have hired him because he would have done what Aaron Ten Hag has. And I also thought it would have worked at Spurs because this is another one of those situations where you have to change the culture. You have to change the identity, the narrative surrounding the club. He's the kind of person with the force of personality who can do it. And it hasn't happened. So that leads me to what I'm going to throw out here, which is, especially if they don't qualify for the Champions League this season. I don't think they're going to do this, but the right answer is sell Harry Kane. Because if you can't get into the top four, that means you have too many holes that you need to plug on in your squad. You cannot just go make another marquee signing next summer at whatever position, another attacker, another midfielder, I don't really care, and expect things are going to be different. So you got to try and kind of do what Liverpool did, which was sacrifice Philippe Coutinho. Now, I have confidence Harry Kane, if he gets sold, is going to work out much better for the team that acquires him than Philippe Coutinho did for Barcelona. But you turn that money into what you needed to fill out that squad to make them a team that can win a Champions League. You're not even trying to get that far if you're Spurs. But can you keep subjecting Harry Kane to this? Maybe making the Champions League. Again, if you make the Champions League, maybe it's a different conversation. But if they fail to qualify for the Champions League, again, I don't think they'll do it, but to me, that's the right answer. As that you say, look, Harry, you deserve better. We got to find a way to try and hang with a resurgent Manchester United, a Newcastle who's here to stay, a Liverpool who's going to continue to regroup and invest, Manchester City, Arsenal. Right, what we have right now isn't good enough. Then my other question to that is, okay, if you hypothetically decide to sell Harry Kane, the only team that comes to mind for me is Real Madrid. Is Real Madrid ready to invest in a Harry Kane when Kylian Mbappe is potentially sitting there and Karim Benzema is still playing really well? Right? It's not like Harry Kane is kind of your long-term, slow transition into that's our next number 9. If you're buying Harry Kane, you're buying him to play him. But the other team is Manchester City, and that team, there's no spot for him on that club anymore. Which goes to my larger point of something has to change, and unless Harry Kane is sold, I just don't see what that is. And I've tricked myself one too many times into believing Spurs are going to be better than they are, and this is just the reality of the situation until something actually changes. I got to that point with Manchester United, and now I do believe something has changed. Waiting for the same thing for Spurs.